All right, y'all. It's time for me to bring in my guest for today's Reecie Colbert Show. She's a very special guest, Minda Honey, the author of the memoir, The Heartbreak Years. In her book, she explores her journey of love, loss, self-discovery, and many other incredible things that we're going to dive into. Welcome to the Reecie Colbert Show, Minda. How are you?
Hi, Reecie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing wonderful.
I am so happy to have you. I already complimented you on your beautiful, fabulous red curly hair before we started the interview, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it again. For my audience, I always set the stage because they're listening on the radio. So I like to give them a little bit of cues as to who they're listening to. But let's jump right into this book. I read your memoir, so there's just some like jumping questions that I had. But for the audience who has no idea like what this is about, give people just like the spiel as to what this book, who this book is for, what it's about.
This book is absolutely a love letter to Black women. And whether you're a Black woman that's like a millennial or Gen X and you're ready to like relive your 20s dating era, or if you're a college age woman right now or a recent grad Black woman who's like going through it and feeling kind of alone, like this book is like a best friend, older sister kind of ways that's
Yeah.
saying like, look, it's not you. You're not the only one. We've all had like these dating mishaps. I can't tell you how many people of all age ranges, of all relationship statuses that I've spoken to that's like, yes, I dated that guy too, and I dated that guy, and I dated that guy.
Oh,
They
yeah.
also got the t-shirts. So I really just want people to feel like, it's you're not alone in this, but also like you don't have to be ashamed either. Like we were just learning ourselves, learning life, and trying to figure things out. So if you made a few missteps or you didn't always make the choices that were like in your best interest, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's just an aspect of life, and you're gonna learn and grow from that. So I, pretty unabashedly put it all on the page, all of the, all of my dating antics, all of my dancing, drinking,
Yeah.
and, partying with my friends. But I also zoom out and look at how much control I had over this, but then also the narratives in our society that shape Black women's search for love too, because it's not just on us. So how is colorism factoring in? How is racism factoring in? How is misogynoir playing? How has my life materially or not materially changed because we have a Black president in the White House? What does that look like? What does it mean for me? And what does it mean for the other Black women who were at this similar stage in life as me?
Yeah, no. The narratives usually aren't in our favor, so I think it's really important to reclaim control over our own narratives, because I don't think we can single-handedly fix society's views, but I think we can kind of claim our own agency and what we do and how we do it. I mean, my notion is, there's always a notion of 50% of Black women never get married, or whatever the statistics were at the time. I remember Black in America, CNN, Soledad O'Brien. Remember she did those specials, and it was about how Black woman was gonna be single and unmarried and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, look, I don't give a damn about the statistics. I just need one. That's all. That's the number I'm focusing on, is one person that is gonna be right for me in life. But let me ask you this.
And what they don't tell you about the other half of that statistic is that most Black women who do want to be married will be married. We're just not on the same timelines as our peers of other races.
That is true. That is very true. So all that fear mongering, y'all can go somewhere with that. How did you even accumulate the kinds of stories and curate the kinds of stories that you tell in your book? Because for me, like 2023 is like a flash. It's like I'll be forgetting stuff that I did 6 months ago. And so your book is actually set during the Obama years. It's going through your 20s. So how did you even pull on those experiences to write this book?
Okay, I don't know how old you are, Reecie, but I'm going to be 39 in a few weeks.
Okay,
and
so you're younger than me.
It does not look it. Okay, Black don't crack. Okay. But I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, we used to sit at work and write these super long emails to our friends. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't imagine writing a 5,000 word email to my bestie in the middle of the workday today. But back in 2008, we were doing that. So I
Yeah.
still have my old Yahoo email address account that is just like a reservoir of those super long emails my friends and I sent back and forth, all of the Facebook updates you make. And when you go on a bad date, you don't just tell that story one time, you tell it like 15 times. So there are certain details and memories that really stick out. And then I've always been a writer. So I mentioned in the book that I joined this writing group. And I mean, it was me and then everyone else in the group were like elderly white folks, like in their 60s. And I would
Mm-hmm.
show up each week with my little essays, like, me and my boyfriend broke up and I want to die. And so I wrote some of these pieces in real time.
Okay.
So, so I've been just kind of like working on these experiences, telling these stories for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. And I wonder, because it is set some years ago, and now with, things have changed. Like you said, we're not writing 5,000 word emails. We're sending Instagram reels and TikToks, and like, this is my life, so it's like our life is identified in other people's experiences. I wonder if you could have you continued that kind of like chronicling in some kind of ways past the point of where this book is? Like, could there be a part two at some point? Or is it like that was an era and I got that stuff and I don't know how I got it, but that's why it's in the book?
Yeah, I think so. The book starts with me and my high school sweetheart move from Kentucky to California to house sit for his grandparents. We've been together for 6 years. 6 months in, we broke up. So I had to figure out at like 23 how to date as an adult for the first time. I'm away from my friends and family. I'm a Southerner in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
And our country has just elected its first Black president. So the nation is changing at the same time that I'm changing. So it
Yeah.
was one of those moments, if you remember how we had this Obama euphoria where you
Mm-hmm.
had this sense of like, oh, I'm living actual history right
Yeah.
now. And it was a little bit different than the actual history we feel like we're living now. In this moment, things feel, I think, at least for me, a little bit more precarious, a little more like, terrifying. And so I think for the next book, my mind is in kind of a different space. I'm thinking a lot more about identity. I'm thinking a
Mm.
lot more about how we like name and claim ourselves. I'm
Mm.
thinking a lot more about like the connections between like me and like our culture. So yeah, I don't know if I've got like a Heartbreak Years volume 2
Yeah.
in me. And I'm also at this age, hopefully, please pray for me, dating better. So maybe less interesting stories to write
Yeah.
about my dating life.
Yeah. Well, okay, I think it's so interesting that the way that the book, the gamut that it runs, um it's so enthralling. But I what I thought was very interesting is how it doesn't give you a fairy tale ending. And
Mm,
I hope that's not offensive to say, but I think for Black women, our experiences are discounted until we've have it all figured out, right? Like, the one thing they
right.
want to throw at you is that's why you single. That's why you ain't got this. There's always that's why you ain't got boom, boom, boom. And there's always these ways to invalidate you. And so I think it's very bold and courageous to put forth a memoir, a book that is not, the end result isn't like, I have it all figured out and my life is perfect and I have all this stuff and ha ha. It's just like the value is in the experiences as you experience them. Did you have a feeling of like, oh, I don't know how this is going to be received? Or were you like, I'm going to validate everybody who doesn't have it 100% figured out, doesn't have that fairy tale, and they're going to find themselves in my book? Was it either of those or was it something else?
Well, I think most of the time when people write a dating memoir and like kind of like how my book is, like it ends with them getting married. So
Yeah.
part of me was like, oh, I'm about to finish this book and find the man of my dreams. And
Yeah.
then I finished the book and a man did not appear. So I was like, oh, I'm going to need to write a closing essay about how I'm still single.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think it was validating for a lot of people the way that the book ended and to show that like our friends are our greatest romances. And I just kind of got to like this age and place in my life where there was so much good and love in my life that I wasn't willing anymore to sacrifice that for the chaos that a partner might bring in. So it's like, if you're going to be a part of my life, you need to fit the goodness that's already here. And if you can't, then it's not worth it anymore, because in your 20s, your entire life is chaotic. You don't know anything. You don't know where you're headed. And so when you have a chaotic dating life, that's just one more aspect of chaos. But when you get into your 30s and things start to fall into place, when you're dating somebody that's chaotic, it really stands out. Like, it's real loud, it's noisy. And so I think a lot of people are starting to choose peace. I realize that as long as my life is happy, the details of that happiness aren't as important. So I can have a full, happy life and be single, because I know a lot of people who are partnered and are not happy. So what's more important? I want to be happy. I want a partner, but I only want the right partner.
Yeah. No, I agree. Look, I'm married and I have a baby, but I had stipulations as to how I was going to get there. And it did not involve taking anything. I was like, I've been there, done. I got a t-shirt, and now I have rules and I have standards that I'm not budging on, point blank, period. So I 100% feel that. Was there a part of your book where you were thinking like, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk to get through this chapter, and then you were like, ooh, plot twist, I had to, maybe have a couple therapy sessions, or I had to re-examine some things. Was there anything that took a turn that you weren't expecting as you were writing this book?
I don't know about that, but what I will say is that most people are like, oh, how were you able to write about this, like, vulnerable thing or emotional thing, or how were you able to write about like intimacy? And those were not the things that I struggled to write about or felt exposed about, because those were things that I had lived and I've had like, a good 10 to 15 years to sit with them, and then to turn it into art and, make a story, a narrative out of it. The things that I was nervous writing about were the more cultural criticisms and more like political things. Like, I was really like, I feel like I have to say something about colorism, because I think it's disingenuous for me to act like every single Black woman has the same dating experience. But also, a lot of people don't talk about colorism, and it's a really touchy subject. And I want to make sure that like my politics are on point. So like, that's what made me feel nervous. Like, okay, like I'm going to put my views out here, and, I want to make sure that people that I respect those views. And so those were the things that I was nervous about. Like, do I have like the wherewithal to kind of like pull off that sort of thing, and not so much, writing about dudes who did me wrong.
Yeah. I mean, there's pressure around that. If you're a social media person, there's texturism, featureism, colorism, and you will get dragged. Even if your experience, and you've acknowledged this before, like my experiences are that of a Black woman, because there are certain things that Black women are dealing with, but recognizing that I have curly hair and light skin. I think you're kind of light skin. I don't know. Some people would say different depending on the spectrum, but at any rate, and so there are people that are like, you can't talk about your negative experiences without talking about a certain privilege that you have because of certain features. But I also kind of feel like, fuck them, like there's a little part of me that's like, look, I don't have to explain shit to you. I don't have to, do that. But I appreciate that you did it. But I do feel like that's another layer of pressure that are put on Black women. It's like, now I have to explain this and qualify this and justify this.
I gotta have these Black bona fides.
There you go. So I mean, kudos to you for doing that, but also like, anybody got a problem with it, So there's just all these politics of being a Black woman that's just like, golly, but I think it's important because it does make people feel acknowledged and seen. Girl, that was a whole tangent, but I just had to say that because I feel like, why we always put pressure on other Black women to make sure that we're being, in a sense, politically correct, right? In a sense, would you agree?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's even more necessary that you don't got to be apologetic about it, but I do think that like people appreciate and value it being acknowledged, and us also just admitting like there are multiple Black experiences. And so to admit that doesn't make my Black experience any less valid. Right. But I do, like, my mom's Filipino, so there were just like certain, differences within my household.
Yeah.
And other friends' households. So
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I think I think it's beautiful. I think it's the richness of Blackness. There's a lot of racial
absolutely.
gatekeeping right now.
Blackness is very expansive. It's very
Yeah.
expansive.
I love that. It's more expansive than it is exclusive. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's the fabric of Blackness. But okay, girl.
Right. I'm not gonna get pushed out of Blackness because y'all are worried about Rachel Dolezal. Okay. She's a French case.
Meanwhile, Sean King get a pass, don't he? But we're not gonna go there.
Right. Sean King didn't have to write about this. Y'all gave that man millions. Please buy my book.
But he ain't a woman, so there's a privilege. Hello, we're not gonna go there. But anyway, okay, girl, I've held you long enough, but just before we go, I just want to know, for anybody who is, just like wondering, should I just give up on this idea of, finding somebody? Should I just go all in with my friends? Should I just, give up on love? Should I keep going? Like, what does this book say to people who feel like they're at a point where like, this is the decision I have to make for my life? Like Linda Evangelista, for instance, went viral for saying she doesn't want to hear somebody breathe. Like, there are people who kind of are planting flags in like one lane. And I feel like your book doesn't do that. It kind of holds space for all those. So what do you think your book would say to those people who are ready to just like plant their flag one way or another?
Yeah. So the final essay in my book, I talk about how I want a millennial waiting to exhale. And I talk about how you can be content, you can be happy with your life, you can be living the life you want to live, and also still have this desire for partnership. So I would tell these people, you don't got to plant a flag. The only choice you need to make is to live the best life you can possibly live with the options and choices that you have before you. And if the love and the partnership is meant for you, let that person find you in the middle of your happiness, in the middle of your best life. Okay. Like, live your best life and let that person pass through it. And then either way, whether they come along or they don't come along, you are doing what is going to make you happiest.
I love that. That girl, put that on a t-shirt or something or another. Okay, tell people how they can find your book and follow you.
Yeah, so I'm Minda Honey across social media. So at Minda Honey on Twitter and Instagram. My website is mindahoney.com. And you can buy the book wherever books are sold, bookshop.org, barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com. Your local indie bookstore will probably order it for you. But yeah, it's out there and widely available. And I'm also like, if people want to reach out, let me know. I want to know what your thoughts are about dating as a Black woman.
Okay, so y'all heard her at Minda Honey. I know that y'all be out there tweeting and Instagramming and all that kind of stuff. So pick up Minda Honey's book, The Heartbreak Years, and let her know. Let me know too what you think about it, because I read it and I want somebody to talk about it with. Okay. Minda, thank you so much for your time, and you're welcome to come back anytime on the Reecie Colbert Show.
Oh, thank you so much, Reecie. This has been wonderful. You're so kind.
Oh, thank you.